called every police department in the state of Utah. Just pitching. I have an 8-hour course on communication relations to help reduce the effects of PTSD and reduce divorce and suicide.
Okay.
And so that's how I started. And I did that for almost 2 years. And I
Wow.
and I reached out to Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Colorado, all
And
the
then you started spreading out to drivable areas.
yeah. And anyway, so I finally got taught twice in November, once in December, 4 times in January, and then COVID hit in February and
Right.
wiped me out. And I got this agent. She got me booked at 17 places in 7 states, and COVID wiped them all out.
How'd you find her?
I actually talked to a guy that runs training for the police department I used to work at, and he gave me her name.
Oh, you got to hook me up with her
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, she's a great lady.
I was gonna say I have two. I have one agent currently, but I have to pay them a lot of money. It's an agency,
Yeah,
and they do 25 outreaches a month. And then I have another agent who will work on commission, but he's brand new and he's just kind of learning the field.
yeah.
So so
So
I would like to meet her.
yeah, I will get you. She does a great job, and she's like I said, I'm going to be in February 2nd and 21st in Illinois. My son moved to Illinois last year, so I'm going to go stay with him for 2 weeks in between
Okay.
and help him out because he was injured in Afghanistan pretty severely,
Oh, oh
and
man.
so that'll give me a chance to go help him out because he's not local anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, that's she gets me two or three a year, um, and I'm hoping things are starting to loosen up because between COVID and then between all the police departments being shorthanded with all the crap that's going on in our country, um, it's been tough.
Yeah.
I actually have an agent in Vegas, but he hasn't done anything for me yet, and he deals with really highfalutin people.
Okay.
I was hoping maybe he could get me a couple of keynotes a year because that would fund the whole rest of my year.
Right.
But I'm still working on that one.
Do you know exactly how many talks you've given? Did you
Me?
ever add it up? Yeah.
Um, I never really have. Probably on this subject, I've probably done this 20 or 30 times.
It's good to know the number so you can market the number.
Okay.
So you can use it in your marketing. So you can say, I've given this talk dozens of times, and then after dozens, it'll be hundreds of times, and to X amount of audiences. So I've spoken to over 1,000 people on this topic, or thousands of people, whatever the number is for you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm also speaking in March at a business show, which is not my typical audience. Typically, I speak to first responders,
Yeah.
but I'm speaking at a business show, which is a pretty big opportunity because it's the biggest show that they market it as the biggest show in business for the entire year. So that's in Miami, and I just bought my plane ticket before we hopped on.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I'm in New York and I like to get out of New York during the winter.
I That's my plan to head south, but it never seems to happen. Instead of Arizona, I'm going to going to Illinois.
Do you go to Arizona a lot?
My dad lives down there.
We love Phoenix and Sedona. We love it.
Yeah, I love Sedona. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends that were former Phoenix cops.
Okay.
Man, that is a wild town. Oh
It
my
really, it really,
gosh.
it really is. It really is. But it's not. It's such a mixture of you have you have people that have come up from through Mexico. Then
Yep.
you have your college crowd,
And
and
then you
then you
got your
have
retirement crowd.
you got your retirement crowd, and then you have your super wealthy crowd. So
Yeah.
it is a wild. Oh, and then you can't forget the hippies. You got all the hippies.
Yep. Yeah, interesting mix. I actually go down there twice a year, or not twice a year, every other year. Um, I do a martial arts belt review down there every other year.
What style did you study?
Shaolin Chuan Fa or Iron Fist. It's kung fu.
I grew up on kung. Well, I love every martial art, right? Let me
Yeah,
preface that. But I grew up watching all of Bruce Lee's movies and all of the badly dubbed kung fu flicks,
yeah,
and I was subscribed to Black Belt magazine, and so I grew up in the '80s when I was a kid. So I grew up in the '80s, just soaking up every martial art that I could, especially kung fu. Once I got onto the job, I knew that I wanted to train in something. So my first style was Kempo,
yeah,
but I tell everyone that I absolutely hated the katas. The kata, and I know in Kung Fu there's forms, but there's not necessarily katas at like karate has.
yeah. It's a little different.
It's a little different. But I was doing katas and it felt like cheerleading. And I got so sick of it. And my instructor absolutely hated anything that had to do with grappling. He was
Oh,
purely a stand-up guy. And because he came from the corrections world, I looked up to him so much.
yeah,
And I had no desire to ever go in corrections. But I really, really looked up to him because he was on the job and I wasn't yet. I was about to go into the PD, and I was training because I wanted to, just wanted to be proficient and not be scared.
yep,
So I trained that for almost like 2.5 years. And anytime I brought up anything with the ground, like he just he didn't believe in jujitsu at all. And I was a big fan of the UFC and Hoist Gracie. So when that happened in 1993, I was already a huge fan of the UFC and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I don't remember what year it was that I got turned on to the UFC because I know I've been a fan from the beginning, but I don't remember what year I caught wind
yeah,
of it. Because you remember it used to be on VCR, VHS,
yeah,
and you had to know somebody that had the tape, or you had to find it in Blockbuster when they had Blockbusters.
yep.
um, so yeah, so I was a massive fan of martial arts my whole entire life, and my neighbor was a county wrestling champion, so I used to mess around with him all the time, and and he was so good at the takedowns. And I remember I brought so make a long story short, I stopped doing kempo and found a jujitsu school. And my first question to my instructor was, "Are there any katas in jujitsu?" Because I didn't know. And he's like, "No, there's no katas." I'm like, "All right, sign me up." And I brought my friend who his head was swollen because he was a county champion, and he's like, "I'm a national champion." He rolled with my instructor, and my instructor put him in a triangle choke in like less than 30 seconds. Like he just went to his back, wrapped his legs around his neck, and threw him into a triangle choke. And he had him tapping out. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my style. I love this."
Yep. I'll tell you, the
Um,
best thing that
go ahead.
any cop can have had in their experience is wrestling.
Yes.
Because every fight, and I've been in a few, ended up on the ground. Every one of them.
Yeah, you don't want it to go there.
Nope.
And if you can dictate, now I know from watching UFC and also from grappling myself that you don't want to be on the bottom. So you should train to know how to take someone down, or if they're falling on top of you, know how to do a lateral drop so that
Yeah.
you can rotate and not land on the bottom, and or be able to reverse the position really quickly if you need to. Um, was that style your whole life? Did you study that style? Just say it one more time what it was.
Yeah, it's Shaolin Chuan Fa or Iron Fist Kung Fu. Yeah, and we actually did groundwork and stuff, so it was good. In fact, I still do it. I'm probably the oldest student in there now.
I still to this day I have to retire and I need more time. I want to learn dance. I want to learn how to dance like a young I'm almost 50, not quite yet, but I want to learn how to dance like 20-year-olds dancing style. I want to go to class. I don't want to go to the little kid class because I'm
Yeah.
too embarrassed, but I want to learn how to dance and I also want to learn Wing Chun. Wing
Yeah.
Chun since since watching Ip Man, the movie, the Ip Man movies, Wing Chun has always been my dream. But Iron Fist, any kind of kung fu, I love it. And have you ever been to Asia?
Not yet. I actually was supposed to go last year and I ended up having not being able to go.
Okay,
Yeah, we were going to do the Philippines, Japan, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and then I ended up not going. So,
okay.
uh,
I think if you can reschedule that and just like pencil it into the calendar, I think it would I think you would really, really love it. I think you'd benefit from it because I brought my gi. I went to Japan and I brought my gi with me. And
uh,
and I found a school and I went and trained jujitsu for like 2.5 hours. I did like back-to-back classes at a Japanese BJJ school. I was looking for a traditional Japanese jujitsu school, but where I was in Tokyo, I couldn't find any traditional schools. And it's probably, I just didn't know how to search properly, but I couldn't find any traditional schools. So I went to a BJJ school and I just loved it. But I don't train anymore because I had so many injuries and
yeah.
I like going to the gym and I like feeling whole and healthy.
Well, and the physical part is such a basic part of life. If you're out of it, and I'm not in great shape right now, but I'm okay. Especially, you know, I'm not. I'm well over 50. Let's put it that way. and but when I'm in shape, I feel better. And when I feel better, I'm more productive and I'm more active, and
Yes.
so that's kind of that's why I do the martial arts still, and I go twice a week to train.
Now the
And
Iron Fist, it sounds like a hard style. It sounds like you're hitting trees with your fist.
no,
It sounds very hard on the body.
no, actually we're not doing that,
Okay.
but yeah, it starts off real hard and then it softens as you go because you become more efficient.
Okay.
And it's almost now that I'm into the higher ranks, and it's a lot softer
Okay.
in the movement. In the end
Yes.
result, it's not softer.
Yes.
Because it's not quite Tai Chi, but it's going that way a little bit as far as movements.
Yes.
But then the end result is painful.
Okay. All right.
It's a combination, and that's what we've learned. We start off hard, firm form, da 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 da, almost karate esque.
Hmm.
But then as you become more efficient, the movements they shift a little bit, and now I don't have to pound you to break an arm.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, oh, if I push here, it's broken.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so I love the evolution, and it actually is kind of the evolution of my life.
So let's talk about your career.
Okay,
How many years did you do, and when did you retire?
26 years. I was a police officer, patrol, and a detective for 8 years. And then I retired from one department in 2010, and I transitioned over to the transit police
Okay.
in 2010, and I worked there till 2016. That was a whole different wild ride.
So when you say transit, were you at like bus stations or were you on trains?
Both,
Oh, cool.
both, yeah, yeah. The train system here covers like 7 counties,
Okay.
and so we never knew where we were going to be until we got to work.
Wow, that's
And
cool.
yeah, and it was fun, but a whole different clientele,
Yes.
a whole different clientele, and Because we had everything from the homeless to the business people to
Yes.
drug addicts to, I mean, everything in between.
Yeah, when I was in the NYPD, I never got to graduate, but that transit was my first choice. I didn't want to, I did mainly because I didn't want to be in a housing project somewhere, and I didn't want to be on the street in January directing traffic at a car accident. So, I figured if I went to transit, they'd put me in plain clothes pretty quickly. I know that a lot of them do get into, they do want a uniform presence, but they also put a lot of their guys in plain clothes pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's like I say, that's a whole different realm. I got in more fights in 6 years there. Well, as many fights, I won't say more, as I did in 20 years at the other department, which was a suburb of Salt Lake City.
Okay, I've never been. It's funny because I've never been to Utah, and we were looking at staying there. Um, Maybe next year, 2025. Um, I think I told you before we started recording that I've been to Arizona a bunch.
Yeah.
Uh, I went to Colorado. We'll probably go back to Colorado, but we like to hike, my girl and I.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and I know that Utah has a lot of natural national parks, right?
Yes, five.
Yeah, yeah, Utah's big for that. So, um, I'm not sure where my timeshare is. I have a timeshare with Wyndham, so they have a property somewhere. I have to check the book, but somewhere in Utah there's a property, and you'll have to tell us like what's the closest national parks. Like I
Oh,
know there's so many. They're easy to get to too.
yeah, they are. I actually lived down in southern Utah. I built our dream home down there, and we were my front yard, or I'm sitting on my front porch, and I'm looking at Zion's National Park,
That's incredible.
which was beautiful.
I
And
want to go there.
so, yeah, that's kind of a must do.
Yes.
But it gets really crowded, so it depends on the time of the year you go.
Okay. I wouldn't go when there's snow on the ground.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't do that. But I would think anytime from May to September, October, it's probably really busy, right?
Definitely June, July, and August are. May, not as much, but yeah. And then it starts to slow down once school starts. So late September, October is not too bad.
Okay, all right. So I'll probably shoot for May or September. I think September is like the most incredible weather. How cold does it get in Utah?
Oh, in September, it's like, well, it depends. If you're at Zion's, it's going to be in the 60s, maybe 70s, because you're on the Arizona border.
Okay,
But if you're up here, you're still in September, you're still in the 50s and 60s.
okay.
Yeah, September, October, beautiful time of year. In fact, you might even be in the 70s here,
Wow,
up
nice.
by Salt Lake. So yeah, it's still good weather. It doesn't get bad. It didn't cool down this year until end of November, and
Okay,
now it's in the 40s.
okay.
So it's
Yeah,
still doable.
it's the thing that we noticed about Arizona, and I imagine it's the same for, and it was the same for Colorado. You guys have these massive weather shifts. Like it could be 70 during the day and 35, 40 degrees at night.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. It's 30 degrees at night, but in the daytime it's 45 degrees.
Okay.
And right now, and I mean for December, that's unusual,
Yeah.
but we haven't had any bad weather yet. So
Our careers are almost exactly. I was a street cop, almost exactly the same, for 17 years, and detective for 8 years now. Still active, but the end is near.
yeah.
Fingers crossed. What did did you have any like favorite assignments?
Um, I back early on, I was like one of the very first to do community oriented policing. I had a sergeant that was pushing that, and so he picked me, and so I really enjoyed that a lot. but I hate it. I got tired of going to all these meetings. You had your business advisory groups and your school advisory groups and your
Yes.
hotel advisory groups, and so I was in meetings a lot, and I didn't like that part of it. But
I was in that unit for 10 years.
I'm okay.
Yeah. I tell
So,
everyone I stayed too long, but you know what? When I was in that unit, I was doing network marketing, and I
mhm.
know there's a lot of network marketing companies in Utah, that
Oh,
they're based out of Utah. Yeah, so I was doing network marketing, so I was using it as an opportunity to get people's phone numbers and network with business owners and successful people. So I was using it as an opportunity to network, but I
yeah,
tell everyone that I stayed in that unit for way too long.
yeah. I mean, for me, it was so new because this was back in when was this? 92.
Okay.
And this first time ever trying it. And I'll tell you what, it works. It works if you do it
Yeah.
and put in the effort. And I enjoyed that a lot because I got to go out and meet a lot of people, and they weren't all criminals being arrested
Yes.
and doing things um, and it benefited me in the long run because every once in a while I'd get a phone call from somebody, or if I had a question, I'd call somebody that I'd met, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden things came full circle, and I was able to solve whatever it was the issue was.
Developing relationships.
Yeah. And that's what life is about
Yeah.
and that's what I work at doing now is developing relationships. They don't always, um, the effort out isn't always returned immediately, but in the
Yes.
long run, that's what life is about.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we speak on a stage one day together. Um, that's that would be ideal. What do you speak about? You mentioned it
Communication
before.
relations, how to overcome trauma. And I've actually adjusting a few because, part of the reason I don't know anybody that left the job because of the job.
Yep.
It's usually politics.
Yep.
And I got so tired of the politics. I went, you know what? One day I woke up and I looked at my wife. I had just gotten married, remarried. And I looked at my wife and I said, I'm done. I'm done. And I went in and she says, okay. And so
Everyone knows when that day comes.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because I got married. 2 weeks later, I retired. The week later, I was on my honeymoon in Fiji. And since then, I found out I like to write books, and I'm actually pretty good at it. And
What was book number one? What's the title?
Bridging the Gap,
Bridging the Gap.
an inside look at communication relations after trauma.
Okay.
And uh, and so that was my first book. And I actually, I haven't sold a ton. I've got it's out there. And people from California, I ran into a gal, and she says, "Oh, I've heard about your book." And I went, I've not even been to California. What are you talking about? But there's so many interesting stories. Like I had a condo in Florida, and I was sitting out in the hot tub, and these young kids came out, and they were talking, and we got talking about stuff. And one of them asked me what I did, and I told them, and I told them I was an author, and I'd written a book about trauma. And this kid scooted over, 22 years old, and he scooted over and he says, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah, let's talk." And he shared some stuff with me that he'd been traumatized.
Yeah.
He says, "Can I get a copy of your book?" I said, "You know what? I've got one upstairs. I'm going to go." I went, signed an autograph, gave it to him. He says, "You know what? I have 100,000 followers on TikTok." I didn't even know what TikTok was.
Uh-huh.
And he says, "I got 100,000 followers on TikTok. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to share it with people." And this girl in California told me she'd heard about my book. I was sitting next to her on a plane. And she goes, "Oh, I've heard of that." And I said, "Where'd you hear about it?" "Oh, TikTok."
Wow.
So it's little things like that that you never know.
You just never know.
So, you, so yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I get to share my keynote address story. I uh, I put in to speak at the National Homeland Security Conference a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of miscommunication going on there. It was crazy, but I got accepted. And
Okay.
so the week before, I'm supposed to go to Cleveland, which is where it was 2 years ago. I get a call and I said, "Well, first off, how long is my presentation?" because I have an 8 hour version of the course. I have a 4 hour workshop. And he goes, oh, well, you got an hour. I went, oh. So I rewrote everything. And so now I have a keynote,
Right, right.
a 50-minute keynote. And but I got rave reviews, and I actually ended up with some really great contacts. I have friends in New York now up by Niagara. I've got friends in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and friends down in Arlington, Texas, and from that. And it was just a total blast. That was a great experience.
Do you find that more agencies want you to do the keynote, or they want you to do the 4 hour workshop, or like a full day? Like,
Well,
what?
the ones I have in Illinois have all been the 8 hour, the full hour.
Okay.
And what I'm actually doing now too is we just had a documentary that I'm in released on the 28th called "Is There Something Going On at Home?"
With Scott Medlin.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're in that together, and then so I'm going to introduce that into my course also because it's
Okay.
45 minutes, and I can readjust some things and not talk so much, which is better for the course probably.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Who approached you about the documentary idea?
Jason Harney and
Okay.
Deborah Ortiz, the two that are in it. Yeah. And Jason and I have been talking because my book, I was told by a producer or director in California that I should have my book made into a documentary. And so I found out about Jason. I researched and I talked, and I finally called Jason a couple of years ago, and I talked to him about it. And he read my book. He says, "Nah, you can't do a documentary with this." And I was kind of crushed. I'm going, "Okay, what do I do?" He goes, "Oh no, this needs to be a feature film."
Okay.
So he and I are working on a script as we
All right.
speak,
Awesome.
because I don't know how to do a script.
That's really, really cool. What's the next book that you're working on now?
It's called A Sacred Right, and it's a fiction about a Native American, half Native American kid who goes to college, loses touch with his culture, and after graduating, becomes an officer in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to be of service. As a rookie cop, he runs into this underground group who is kidnapping and killing Native Americans, which is a legitimate problem. And so now he's dealing with this underworld group that's doing this. So he's undercover on the reservation where his grandfather's the chief and investigating. And so I just like I say, I just got through about 205 pages now. And by the time I'm done, I figure it'll be close to 350. And he's gone through a couple of real big trials.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, so it's anyway, yeah, it's been fun, and that one will be the first of a 5 book series. He's working on a
All you think you'll use all the same character?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right now he's a rookie cop, but he's been placed on this state task force
Okay.
to help solve this crime. And he just kind of stumbled onto it. Well, he stumbled onto it because there was a credit card that was used at a hotel in his area.
Okay.
It didn't belong to the guy who used it. And as he tracked it back, found out it was a Native American guy from back east, one of the tribes in New Jersey that had gone missing.
I
And
like
that's
the
how he
premise.
stumbled in.
Yeah, I like it.
So now he's, tying. Yeah. Anyway, so he's getting back in touch with his culture and is going through some of the rituals that he had not gone through. And the big one's coming up.
What's the biggest challenge that you find with sitting down and writing? Have you read the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
No, I have not.
It's a very famous book. Joe Rogan talks about it all the time. Um, it's about
Oh,
creators, writers.
oh,
It's called The War of Art by
okay.
Stephen Pressfield, and it's about the resistance that comes up when it's time to sit down and do the work.
I get to share a story with you.
All right.
I had my first book done, edited, ready to go, and the publisher wanted the full manuscript.
Hmm.
So I sat there and I had to fill out the paperwork for the publisher, and all I had left was the last page, which was endorsements.
Uh-huh.
And I this was in November, and I can't remember what year, probably 2020 maybe. And and that's all I had. I had two endorsements, and they wanted 3 to 5. And I got looking at it in my mind. You know, the mind tries to protect you from failure, and
Yes.
my mind is going, "Oh, your endorsements aren't good enough, and you only have two. You need three, or at least, and maybe five, and going all this." And so I sat on it for 6 months.
Uh-huh.
I sat on it with that internal fear for 6 months,
Yep.
and finally, I woke up one day. Man, you got 20 minutes worth of work. What are you doing? And I got up and I used a little tool that I learned. It takes 5 seconds for your mind to come up with an objection. So I got up, said, I'm going to go finish this paperwork. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I went down and I got on the computer and I did it. 20 minutes later, I was done. I hit send, sent it to the publisher. And this was on a Thursday. And I got a call on Friday. And he says, I'd like to talk with you in person. Here's some of the things. And they kind of went through the process. And I was working. So my next day off was on Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
because I had to work, no, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was on Tuesday. So I got on a Zoom call with him on Tuesday, and he says, here's what we're going to do. They meet once a week on Thursdays to see if they accept what books they're going to accept and things like that. Went through the whole process. And I said, okay. He said, I'm going to send you a sample contract, if they, that way you're familiar with it, if they do offer you to take your book. So I got there, and then on my next day off was Friday, because I had Monday off work. I don't, now it's getting confused, but on Friday, I was out in my garage working, and I didn't have my phone with me. And I went back in, I had a message, and a big, long message, and it says, by the way, congratulations, they accepted your book. Instead of sending you a sample contract, I'm sending you the real thing. And, so my internal fear delayed me 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
But
I've experienced that myself.
yeah, well, that's one of the biggest things I realized as an officer. I lived my life in fear of doing the wrong thing, fear of failure, fear of letting somebody down or saying the wrong thing. And that is no way to live life.
Fear of being judged by others that you work with.
Yeah,
That's
big
a big
time.
one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Fear of judgment. Yeah. So you would definitely resonate with that book, The War of Art. I love it so much. I got it on Audible, and I also have the paperback version sitting
Oh,
upstairs on my
well, I
bookshelf.
will order that today.
Yeah, it's really really good, and I listen to it periodically, like every quarter or so, just to remind myself that resistance to things that you want to do, it naturally just pops up, and he calls it the resistance.
Okay. Well, and which is interesting because that's one reason in my courses that I teach, and even my keynote, I start with self accountability,
Yes,
because we can't change until we're self accountable
yes.
and open, honest. And that's what I've discovered is cops are great. They want to go blow things up and shoot things and get in fights and do that stuff. But when it comes to looking inside ourselves, we suck.
Did you start preparing for your writing and speaking before you retired, or is this all did this all come to you post retirement?
I started preparing the speaking. Um, Actually, when I wrote my program, it was kind of funny. I was talking to actually it's post retirement now, because I got married, and then no, that was before I got married, because I was still I lived at my cabin by myself for 3 years, and that's where a lot of this started. After got divorced, and I had to mend myself because I realized I was kind of screwed up.
Yeah.
I had PTSD, and I didn't talk about anything. Big mistake.
Yep.
And that's why communication is so near and dear to my heart. But while I was up there, I went through some trainings, I went through some things to help me out, and I got to take a hard look at myself. I was sitting there one morning. I woke up at 6 o'clock, a day off. I was 57 miles from work, so I got up early to go to work. But to this day, it was my day off. I woke up at 6 o'clock, and man, I just had information coming into my head. And I rolled over, grabbed a notebook, and I wrote for 4 hours. I didn't even know what I wrote.
That's amazing.
And then I talked to my friend who's a counselor, and I'd been talking to her about this class that I wanted to do because I wanted to keep other people from doing the same stupid stuff I did. And she looked at me and she goes, "You're 60% done. Now finish it." After I had to struggle, I couldn't even read the writing. It was writing so fast I could barely read it. But as I read through it to her, she said, "There you go. There's your program." And so I truly believe in inspiration.
Yes.
And I truly know there's some situations where I could have been hurt really, really bad, and somebody saved my tail.
You had a guardian.
Yeah, and or somebody or something, and I know there is a God, whether you want to call him Allah, Buddha, God, or whatever. It doesn't matter to me because I know that there's things out there.
Glenn, how can people find you if they want to like look you up or they want to get one of your books? Do you have a pen name or is it under your name?
It's under my name, and the book's Bridging the Gap. You have to put both in because on Amazon there's a ton of Bridging the Gaps.
Yes.
And let me grab something here. That's what it looks like.
Bridging the Gap. Okay.
And it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And I found out Walmart and a whole bunch of other places that I wasn't aware of. And so you can find it. And I think it's on sale on Amazon right now for like $14.95
Okay.
or something like that. It was last week anyway.
All
Uh,
right.
and all I ask is if you buy it and you read it, give me an honest review. That's all I ask.
Leave a review.
Yeah, because I had some people that I have had issues with get on there and trash me. And when you read the reviews, you kind of go, if you read the book and then read the reviews, you go, wait a minute, he talked about that, but it is what it is. Like my publisher said, you can't have all fives.
My last 5 questions for you. I really appreciate you hopping on. What's your definition of a hero?
Somebody who pushes through in spite of fear. And it doesn't even have to be something heroic. It can even be making a decision, a simple decision that has an effect on their life or the life of others. And somebody who gives for the betterment of others.
I like it. When you're starting to feel like you're starting to feel some pressure and you're starting to feel some stress, how do you save yourself?
Breathe.
I've heard
Breathe.
that one. I've heard that one before.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when I teach my classes, I'll ask people, how many of you meditate? Nobody will raise their hand. And then I'll ask, how many of you are in SWAT or a specialized response team? And few people will raise their hand. I said, okay, when you're going in a stressful situation, what do you do? And they'll say, oh, well, we combat breathe. I said, okay, so you meditate.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize that by lowering the heart rate, getting the oxygen level up by breathing, makes a huge difference in life.
Yeah, when people are starting to feel stressed out, your breaths become shorter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's harder to remember in the moment, but it translates to personal relationships too.
It does. Yeah, it does. So when
Uh,
you start to get angry, breathe.
yes, yes. Take a moment, take a few deep breaths, and calm the situation a little bit. Would you ever consider coaching as another income stream down the line? I know you got a lot on your plate already.
Yeah, I would. I'd have to work things in, you know, but I thought about it. I'll be honest, I don't feel like I'm qualified.
Oh, after
But
26 years and 2 books and a couple of keynotes here and there, I think it's safe to say you're qualified.
so yeah, I would consider that.
What is what's your best ability right now or your greatest strength?
My greatest strength. Ooh. Good question. Almost like a promotion interview. um, my awareness of an experience with a great world. I mean, I'm not just one channel, and one. I'm not a one horse show, because I have experienced so many things in life that I and empathy and open and honest communication.
Which is also why I think you'd make a great coach for someone or great consultant. Um, Now, my last question for you is just for fun. If you had a comic book superpower, like you could be like the Flash or Aquaman, Superman, Spider-Man, what would it be and why?
Oh man, probably the Invisible Man.
Invisible.
Yeah, because I'm not a lot of bling and a lot of shine, but I imagine how much information I could gather and that I could use to help others and benefit. I mean, as I go through, I think something like that would be help me understand things a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Glenn, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Um, I will definitely keep in touch with you. Um, Good luck on your speaking engagements and good luck with the upcoming book. Glenn Williams, Bridging the Gap, available on Amazon. Look him up. All right, family. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Everyone I interview, I've chosen for you guys because of their story, and I hope that you get some value every single time. If you did get value or just simply enjoyed the episode, please share the episode with someone that you know. If you know of a guest, a frontline hero that has an amazing story, something uplifting or a positive message, hit me up in the contact form of www.davidleith.com or DM me at Instagram at davidleith1. Subscribe to the show because I have some really phenomenal guests coming up in the next few weeks that you definitely don't want to miss. All right, one.